Family didn't invite me to Christmas because it's no place for losers, my brother said. I calmly agreed and stopped funding his children and wife. Now he's going crazy. I was actually looking forward to Christmas this year for once. I wasn't scrambling at the last minute to get everything together. By the first week of December, I'd bought presents for everyone: my parents, my brother Jacob, his wife Kelly, their kids. I even bought extra just in case anyone brought unexpected guests. I don't know, I just felt like this year was going to be good. So, I was completely blindsided when, as I stood on my parents' front porch with a bag of wrapped presents in each hand, my mom opened the door and said, "We don't want you here this year." At first, I thought it was some kind of weird joke. I started to laugh a little, but then Jacob's voice cut in from behind her. "This is no place for losers," he said. "You're really starting to wear on all of us." I just stood there, staring at her. My dad was in the background, not saying a word, just looking awkwardly everywhere but at me. My mom looked uncomfortable but didn't back away, and Jacob looked downright smug. I felt this onslaught of emotions: confusion, anger, embarrassment. But somehow, I stayed calm. I just nodded, said, "Fine, if that's how you feel," and walked back to my car. But as I sat there in the driveway, staring at the bags of presents in the passenger seat, something inside me changed. No place for losers? Tired of me? Where was this coming from? I had a pretty good idea Jacob was behind it, but I couldn't figure out why. I'd been nothing but generous to him and his family over the years. I'd helped pay for his kids' school supplies, covered their summer camp fees, even pitched in on his mortgage when things got tight. And now, out of the blue, I'm not welcome at Christmas? I decided I wasn't going to leave just yet. I was going back to the door to get some answers. I left the presents in the car and went back to the door. My parents were still standing there, whispering to each other as if they hadn't expected me back. Jacob was lounging on the couch, scrolling through his phone, acting as if nothing had just happened. I didn't bother to knock. "What's going on?" I asked, stepping inside. "Why am I not welcome at Christmas? What did I do?" Jacob grinned without even looking up from his phone. "You really don't get it, do you? You've been slacking off lately. The kids have barely gotten anything from you this year." I stared at him, stunned. "What are you talking about? I've spent hundreds on presents for your kids. They have more presents in the car than anyone else." Jacob finally looked at me. "Last year, you did more. This year, it's like you don't care. It's embarrassing for us, honestly." I turned to my parents, expecting them to say something, maybe defend me or tell Jacob he was out of line. Instead, my mom gave me this awkward smile and said, "But you just bought a new car. You found money for it." For a second, I didn't even know how to respond. "The car is on credit," I said, keeping my voice steady. "And even if it wasn't, how does buying a car suddenly make me responsible for Jacob's kids? They're not my responsibility." "You're the one who makes the most money," Jacob said, leaning back on the couch as if this was all perfectly reasonable. "We're a family. Families help each other. You've always done that." I looked at Kelly, his wife, who was sitting quietly in the corner. She hadn't said a word, but her face was flushed, and she was staring down at her hands. She looked as if she wanted to disappear. "Is that your reasoning?" I asked. "Because I've been generous in the past, I'm now obligated to do so forever? And if I don't, I'm a loser?" Jacob shrugged. "If the shoe fits." That was it for me. I took a step back and shook my head. "You know what? You're right. I don't belong here." I looked at my parents. "Enjoy your Christmas, then." I turned to Jacob. "And good luck with those presents, because this loser is done financing your life." I walked out without waiting for an answer. I drove home in silence, gripping the wheel harder than I needed to. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Was I really the bad guy here? I'd gone above and beyond for my family for years, always stepping up when things got tough for Jacob, making sure his kids never felt the pinch of his financial struggles. And now, not only was I not welcome at Christmas, I was a loser for not doing enough. When I got home, I sat in the driveway for a while, staring at nothing. The bag of presents was still in the car, and the sight of them made me sick to my stomach. I'd spent weeks picking out just the right things, thinking about what the kids would love, what my parents would appreciate. And for what? To be told I didn't belong? The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about Christmas or presents. This had been building for years, and I'd been too blind, or maybe too willing, to see it. The truth was, I'd always been the one Jacob leaned on. When he and Kelly were first married, they got off to a rocky start financially. He wasn't great at holding down a steady job, and Kelly's part-time work barely covered the basics. I'd stepped in to help, thinking it would just be for a little while. A couple hundred here, a couple hundred there. I helped with rent once when they were facing eviction, then later with daycare when their second child was born. But a little while turned into years. Every time Jacob hit a rough patch, the first thing he did was call me. And to be honest, I always said yes, not because I had to, but because I cared about his children. I didn't want them to go without, and I didn't want to see my brother and his family struggle. Looking back now, I realized that I'd created this dynamic. I made it too easy for Jacob to rely on me, and somewhere along the way, it stopped being gratitude and turned into entitlement. And tonight, being shut out of my own family's Christmas because I didn't do enough? That was the breaking point. The next morning, I woke up with a clearer head and made a decision. I was done. No more bailing Jacob out, no more endless gifts to make up for his lack of effort. If he wanted his kids to have the things I'd provided, he could figure it out for himself. It wasn't an easy decision. Cutting off my brother didn't just mean cutting off financial support, it meant risking my relationship with him, with his children, and maybe even with my parents. But I couldn't go on being treated like an ATM instead of a brother and a son. I didn't reach out to anyone, and they didn't reach out to me. I thought maybe they got the message, but I should have known Jacob wouldn't let it go that easily. The silence stretched through New Year's Eve, no phone calls, no texts, nothing. I didn't hear from my parents, Jacob, or even Kelly. For the first time in years, I spent the holidays completely alone. It wasn't that I expected them to reach out, but it was a different feeling when midnight came and went, and my phone remained silent. I won't lie, part of me thought about calling. But every time I picked up the phone, I remembered Jacob's smirk, his words, "No place for losers." I'd been the one holding things together for years, and they had the audacity to treat me like I was disposable. No, if they wanted distance, I'd give it to them. By mid-January, I began to feel the change. Kelly had always been quiet, the kind of person who avoided conflict. But one night, I got a text from her out of the blue. It was short and to the point. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I don't agree with what happened. Jacob won't hear it from me, but I thought you should know. I sat staring at my phone for a long time, not sure how to respond. On the one hand, it felt good to know that someone in the family saw things for what they were. On the other hand, Kelly had been silent that night, and her apology now felt like too little, too late. I finally replied, "I appreciate it, Kelly, but this isn't something I can just move on from." She didn't push the conversation further, and that was fine with me. Then, in early February, Jacob showed up at my house unannounced. I was in the middle of a work meeting when I heard the knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I ignored it at first, but the knocking didn't stop. When I finally opened the door, there he was, Jacob, looking more disheveled and frustrated than I'd ever seen him. "We need to talk," he said, stepping inside before I could stop him. I crossed my arms. "What's this about?" He got right to the point. You need to stop acting like this and start helping out again. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe he meant it. Helping out? You mean pay for your life? I told you, I'm done with that. He glared at me. You're the one with the money. Do you know how hard it's been for us since you decided to act like this? The kids barely have what they need. Kelly's trying to keep it together, but we can't do it without your help. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you listening to yourself right now? You're a grown man, Jacob. You have a wife and children. If you need more money, go out and earn it. It's not my job to solve your problems. You've always helped before, he shot back. Why are you being so selfish now? Selfish? I repeated. You want to talk about being selfish? Let's talk about how you lied to our parents about me, turned them against me, and then banned me from Christmas because I didn't spend enough on your kids. And now you're here asking for more? You've got some nerve, Jacob. He started to say something else, but I held up a hand to stop him. We're done here. I'm not giving you another dime, and I don't want to hear from you again until you figure out how to act like an adult. He stood there for a moment, glaring at me, before finally storming out. After Jacob stormed out, I thought that would be the end of it for a while. He'd maybe complain to my parents, but eventually, he'd figure out I wasn't going to back down. I was wrong. 2 days later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I wouldn't have answered, but something told me to pick up. Hello, is this Michael? A man's voice asked. Yeah, who's this? This is Mark Dawson. I'm a lawyer. I represent a client who has recently expressed concern about certain financial matters involving your family. Do you have a moment to discuss them? I froze. A lawyer? What financial matters? I can't go into detail over the phone, he said, his tone overly polite, but it involves financial contributions you've made to your brother Jacob and his family, specifically your use of those contributions. Would you be willing to come to my office for a discussion? I didn't know what to say. My mind was racing with possibilities, none of them good. Had Jacob taken out a loan in my name? Was he using my information for something shady? Or was this a desperate attempt to guilt me into giving him money again? Who's your client? I finally asked. There was a brief pause. I'm afraid I can't disclose that right now, but I assure you this is not a lawsuit against you. It's more an investigation. Against my better judgment, I agreed to a meeting. Curiosity got the better of me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than just Jacob being himself. When I walked into Mark Dawson's office the next day, I wasn't sure what to expect. But as soon as I sat down, he dropped a bombshell. The client I'm representing is Kelly, he said, pushing a folder across the desk toward me. I blinked, taken completely by surprise. Kelly? Why would she need a lawyer? Mark folded his hands and watched me closely. She thinks Jacob's been using the money you've given him over the years inappropriately. She has reason to believe he's been hiding money from her and from you. My stomach turned. Hiding money? What do you mean? I asked. He opened the folder, revealing copies of bank statements, receipts, and what looked like screenshots of text messages. She suspects that Jacob has been taking your financial contributions and funneling them into a separate account. Based on what she found, he may have been using the money for gambling and other personal expenses instead of supporting his family. I stared at the documents in disbelief. You're saying all those times I helped him with bills, with his kids' school stuff, that money never went to them? Mark nodded solemnly. It seems that way. Kelly discovered this recently and came to me because she didn't know what to do. She didn't want to involve you at first, but given the circumstances, she thought you should know. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Jacob had been playing me all along, taking money I thought was going to help his family and blowing it on who knows what. I didn't know whether to feel angry, betrayed, or just plain stupid for not seeing it sooner? Does Kelly have proof? I asked, my voice tense. Mark nodded and pushed the folder closer to me. Take a look for yourself. I leafed through the documents. There were transfers from my account to Jacob's, matching the times I'd helped him with emergencies. Then there were withdrawals from his account, large sums going to a separate account in his name. I saw transactions from that account, online gambling sites, expensive restaurants, and even a few hotel stays. Unbelievable, I muttered, shaking my head. And Kelly knew about this? She only recently discovered the second account, Mark explained. She had suspicions for a while, but she didn't have access to his banking information until she stumbled across some bank statements he'd left out. That's when she contacted me. I sat back, trying to take it all in. Does she want me to do anything? Press charges or something? Mark shook his head. Not at this point. She's more focused on protecting herself and the children. But she thought you should know in case Jacob tries to manipulate you further. I let out a bitter laugh. Well, he already tried. He showed up at my house a few days ago, demanding that I start helping again. Mark gave me a knowing look. That goes along with what Kelly told me. It seems Jacob is feeling the pressure now that your financial support has stopped. He may be in even deeper trouble than Kelly knows. I stared at the folder, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to storm over to Jacob's house and confront him, but another part knew that would only give him the satisfaction of knowing he'd gotten under my skin. Instead, I asked, what's Kelly up to? Mark hesitated before answering. She's considering her options. She wants to make sure she and the kids are safe, financially and otherwise. If Jacob's behavior escalates, she may file for separation or take other legal action. Hearing this hit me harder than I expected. Kelly had always seemed like the quiet, loyal type, the kind of person who'd stick by Jacob no matter what. If even she was willing to walk away, it told me how bad things had gotten. I thanked Mark for his time and left the office with a mixture of emotions: anger at Jacob, sadness for Kelly and the kids, and guilt for not realizing sooner how deep this had gone. But most of all, I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying Jacob's weight, and now that I knew the truth, there was no way I was going to let him manipulate me again. After I left the lawyer's office, I couldn't stop thinking about everything I'd just learned: the gambling, the hidden money, Kelly quietly planning her next move. It was like a soap opera, except it was my family, and I was right in the middle of it. Over the next few days, I kept my distance. I didn't call my parents, and I certainly didn't reach out to Jacob. But it seemed the silence didn't sit well with him, because one night, just as I was about to sit down for dinner, my phone lit up with his name. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick it up. "What do you want, Jacob?" He didn't waste any time. "We need to talk," he said, his voice strained, almost desperate. "You said something to Kelly, didn't you?" I raised an eyebrow. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb," he snapped. "She's been acting weird since Christmas, and now she's bringing up lawyers and separation. I know you've been putting ideas in her head." I couldn't help but laugh. "You think I'm the problem? You're the one who lied to her, hid money, and gambled it away. If she's tired of your crap, that's on you, not me." There was a moment of silence before Jacob finally said, "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I think I do," I said, my anger bubbling to the surface. "Kelly told me everything: the secret account, the gambling, the money you've been wasting while I've been breaking my back trying to help you. You're a joke, Jacob." He started to shout, but I didn't let him finish. "Here's the thing," I said, cutting him off. "You have used me for the last time. I'm done helping you. I'm done covering for you. If Kelly leaves you, that's on you. And if you try to drag me into this mess again, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you've been up to." I hung up before he could answer. My hands were shaking, but it felt good to finally say what I'd been holding in for years. The fallout didn't last long. The next day, Kelly called me. "Did Jacob call you?" she asked, her voice careful. "Yes," I said. "He wasn't happy." "Did something happen?" She hesitated before saying, "I confronted him about the gambling and the hidden account. He admitted some of it, but he's still trying to make it sound like it's no big deal." "Are you okay?" I asked. "I'm fine," she said, though she didn't sound it. "But I'm tired of making excuses for him. The kids deserve better." Hearing her say that hit me harder than I expected. I knew things were bad between them, but this felt like the beginning of the end. "Whatever you decide to do, you have my support," I said. "Thank you," she replied quietly. "And I'm sorry for everything. You didn't deserve the way we treated you at Christmas. I should have said something sooner." We talked for a while, and when we hung up, I felt a strange sense of closure. Jacob had burned every bridge with me, but Kelly and the kids, they weren't my enemies. And if she was brave enough to stand up to him, I wouldn't hold a grudge. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jacob wasn't done making trouble. A few weeks later, I received a text message from Kelly. It was short, just 3 words, "We're leaving today." I called her immediately, and she explained that she and the kids were moving to another state while Jacob was out of town on a business trip, which I assumed was just another excuse for gambling. She packed up their things, hired a moving van, and left. She didn't want him to know where they were going, at least not until she had everything sorted out legally. "I just couldn't stay any longer," she said quietly. "I can't keep pretending this is normal." "What about the rent and everything?" I asked, genuinely curious as to how she was doing it. There was a pause before she admitted, "I was hoping you could help me with that, just for a little while." "I hate to ask, but—" "Say no more," I interrupted. "I'll cover it." So, yeah, I ended up helping her and the kids, but for the first time in years, it didn't feel like I was being used. It felt like I was finally doing the right thing. Jacob, as expected, went completely crazy when he got back and found the house empty. He called me, ranting and raving about how I'd turned Kelly against him and ruined his life. I let him vent for a while before saying, "Maybe if you spent less time gambling and more time being a husband and father, this wouldn't have happened. But hey, good luck with that." Then I hung up. Kelly is doing well now. She's found a steady job, the kids are settling into their new school, and she's finally starting to feel like she's back in control of her life. As for Jacob, I hear he's still blaming everyone but himself, but honestly, it's not my problem anymore. So, there's your happy ending, if you can call it that.